Hello and welcome to the Badass Fertility Podcast. I am your host, Catherine Bregman. I am a fertility mindset coach who helps women around the world become the moms they are meant to be. Having spent numerous years trying to conceive my baby girl, I know the heartache, fear, and grief that carries with this experience. And I know that women who succeed on this journey discover how to use their mind as an asset rather than a block to bringing their baby home. I call this connecting with your inner badass, and I guarantee it is a surefire way to bring your baby home faster and with far less stress. If you are ready to remove the blocks between you and your baby and learn how to live this journey with confidence, clarity, and greater ease, then you are in the right place, my friend. So let's get started. Okay, so today's topic is how to have faith over fear. We're going to talk about what the heck that means, and we're going to talk about how to do it. So first of all, I want to just address this right out of the gate. I know that the word faith can be kind of a triggering word. So I want to put it out there right away that this is not about religious doctrine. Okay. It can be about a faith, a religious faith. If you practice one, it fits right into what I'm going to talk about today. But faith on this journey doesn't refer to anything other than some sort of power beyond yourself that is ultimately looking out for your greatest good. Sometimes we talk about the universe, right? Or Mother Nature, or Source, or even God. Some people like a clever little acronym, GUS, God, Universe, Source, right? So whatever is the word that you use in your daily life to refer to that larger essence or phenomenon, like beyond our empirical knowing, that's the thing that I want you to think of when I use the word faith. Okay. It's really about trusting that even when stuff totally sucks, it is going to work out in the end. Even the shittiest moments will pass, and eventually you will bring your baby home. So I just want to validate how hard this struggle is for so many women. I find it fascinating that there was a study that came out recently showing that women who are diagnosed with infertility experience stress levels that are comparable to people who've been diagnosed with HIV, heart disease, and cancer. Right? So let that sink in and let that validate for you that whatever you're feeling, the fears, the anxiety, the depression, right? The dark hole that it feels like you just can't climb out of, those are valid and they're real and they're scientifically observed, right? Among women who are struggling to conceive. So I want to lay that out there that all of that is valid and real. And today's podcast episode is about how to pull yourself out of it, how to recognize that it's real and also not get stuck in it so that you can cultivate faith when fear wants to bite you in the ass and drag you back into the dark corner and never let you leave. Okay. So I will tell you, before I actually, was diagnosed with infertility and struggled for years to have my daughter, I actually was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. And I don't normally talk about this because it's a sensitive topic for me, but I wanted to bring it up because I wanted to validate this study, right? And actually say, if you asked me which one was scarier, being diagnosed with thyroid cancer or being diagnosed with infertility, I would tell you infertility. And the reason why is because at least with the thyroid, there was like a very clear path for how to get out of the woods, right? My doctors took action. We were going to do a surgery. We were removing the thyroid. It was like this cut and dry, play by play follow connect all the dots and you'll be okay. And I know I'm not saying that that's true for everyone who is diagnosed with cancer. I'm not speaking to that experience at all. I'm just speaking to my experience as I had it with my thyroid malignancy, right? So don't get me wrong. I mean, I was terrified, but at the same time, the statistics were in my favor. There was a clear play-by-play. And I actually remember when my endocrinologist told me that I had been diagnosed with this malignancy, my very first question to her was, can I still have kids? And it was like I still think back to that. I'm like, what kind of question was that? But it just goes to show that was always this thing that I really wanted. And there was something inside of me, even then, that was afraid that it wouldn't happen. Right? So I was always wanted to be a mom. And so anyway, I just wanted to validate with that little story that what you're going through is real. And I think that just to wrap up that idea before I move on, the reason infertility can be so freaking scary is because there isn't a play-by-play book, right? There's not necessarily a path that your doctor can lay out for you and not, there's never guarantees, but, tell you with great confidence, like this is going to work, right? Many of us who have done IVF or IUIs who thought, oh, my chances are 50%. Like 50% is a really good number in reproductive endocrinology, right? So that's like pretty low compared to other areas of medicine where if you follow the playbook, you're going to get higher, better results. Okay. So I just wanted to validate that. I also wanted to point out that even though I always wanted to become a mom, I also, and I find this to be true with so many of my clients, we all want to do it in this certain way, right? It's like you're waiting so long in your life. You want to have the job, right? The degrees, the career, the house, the husband or partner, right? And all of the things like lined up in your life, right? And I wanted that too. And I also wanted to live my life. I didn't want to have kids when I was 25 or 28, right? I wanted to live my life to the fullest before I began to settle down. So oftentimes what gets wrapped up in the fear part of this journey, and I'm going to talk about the faith part in a bit, but looking at the fear part, it's like these questions of like, did I do something wrong? Maybe I should have settled down sooner. Maybe I should have tried to have kids sooner. Maybe I didn't take good enough care of myself throughout my earlier years, right? Maybe I stayed out late one too many nights. Maybe I didn't have a healthy enough diet. For a lot of women who did become pregnant before they were ready to be moms and terminated the pregnancy, even if they intellectually are at peace with that choice and know in their hearts it was the right decision, sometimes on a subconscious level, I have seen with my clients, there's still stuff to work out there. There's still a fear. Maybe I don't deserve this. Maybe I did something wrong and I'm being punished, right? Am I selfish for having waited so long? Am I being punished for putting myself first all those years? I mean, there is so much emotionally going on. It seriously freaking amazes me that it takes people, including myself, so long to realize that getting pregnant is not just a physical thing. It is not just about the physical body at all, right? It's about the mind-body connection. And it's also about the spirit, right? It's about the mind, the body, and the spirit coming together in a way that is harmonized to optimize your greatest chance for success. And again, we're using these like really big and potentially loaded terms like faith and spirit. So I just want to be really clear. In this case, all spirit means is a willingness to suspend disbelief and pursue an outcome based on faith in yourself or the universe and the results you want to get. All right. So this is a gold nugget. You're probably not near a pen or pencil, but just note what I'm saying here. It's a willingness to suspend disbelief and pursue an outcome based on faith in yourself or the universe and the results you want to get. All right. So when we talk about suspending disbelief, right? A lot of us sit here and we're very fixated on all of the fact-based evidence that tells us that our chances suck, right? Okay. And maybe you're not in that position, but if you are, right? I was too. When I was trying to have my daughter, there was a long list of things working against me. I'm not even going to go into all of them, but I will hit the highlights for those of you out there who are struggling with some of the same things right now. So endometriosis, elevated NK cells, a history of cysts and fibroids, non-ideal AMH and FSH levels, plus, as we know, a thyroid thing. So all of this caused me to have a lot of disbelief, right? A lot of disbelief and a lot of fear. And some of the most common questions that come up as a result of that disbelief or that fear is, am I too old? Did I wait too long? Will I ever become a mom? Do I have any good eggs left? Right? So ask yourself, have any of those fears ever come up for you? And if so, what did you do about them? It's really easy to get hijacked onto the fear train when these thoughts inevitably come up. But that is the beauty of learning tools to deal with them, because you don't have to get hijacked. You can choose a different path instead. So what does it mean then to choose faith over fear? So let's start with a little breakdown of what faith is and isn't, right? So faith is defined as a complete trust or confidence in someone or something. It can be confidence in higher power, as we already said, like God, universe, source, mother nature, cosmos, whatever, you name it. Having faith doesn't mean anything other than you choose to place your confidence in something beyond your control. You recognize that you have control over where you place your thoughts, and that by choosing to have faith, you are opening yourself up to possibilities that aren't open if you live in fear. Faith is not contingent on believing in a particular religious faith and has nothing to do with organized religion. Okay, on the other hand, fear is an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is likely to cause pain or a threat. So what's really cool about faith and fear is that they are opposite emotions and they can't be held at the same time. So in other words, you're either in faith or you're in fear, but you cannot be in both at once. So the beauty of that is when you choose faith over fear, you start to experience your life very differently. Your journey and your chances of becoming a mom start to skyrocket. And this is because what we focus on expands. When you focus on faith, you give power to the beliefs that guide you to become a mom, right? When you focus on the belief that you are going to become a mom, despite the obstacles, despite the numbers, despite the odds that maybe you've been given, when you choose to believe in yourself rather than sitting in fear, you will find yourself making more empowered choices that facilitate the end you are going for. For example, you might start to actually practice that morning routine that whoever, maybe someone you know, a coach, whomever recommended to you. You might find yourself more willing to sit for 5 minutes and meditate, which has huge impacts on your overall physical and mental well-being, right? You might start to happily limit your caffeine intake when before it felt like torture to only be able to have 1 cup of coffee. Now it might not feel so bad, right? And even more beautifully, you might find yourself taking a walk and being able to really imagine and feel within yourself the future walk that you're going to take with your baby. In contrast, when you get caught up in fear, your stress hormones start to rise, right? Okay. So Deepak Chopra, one of these, most famous mind body teachers, doctors, etc. out there, talks about how this basic emotion like fear can be described in two ways. We can describe it as an abstract feeling, which is mostly how we've been talking about it so far on this episode, or you can describe it as a tangible molecule of the hormone adrenaline and cortisol. Without the feeling of fear, there is no hormone. Without the hormone, there is no feeling. So the revolution that we call mind-body medicine is really based on the simple discovery that wherever a thought goes, a chemical goes with it. So just think for a moment about the power and potential that places in your hands to make choices that can help lead you to the one thing that you want more than anything in the world. Now, I know that as soon as I say this, for many of us, the first thing that pops up in our head is, oh my God, so then when I'm afraid or when I'm doubting myself, I'm sabotaging my chances. No, okay? Being afraid doesn't sabotage your chances. And practicing faith can help you, because what I'm talking about is an overall reprogramming of your nervous system, okay? Because our nervous system is literally programmed to produce hormones that reflect our thoughts and our feelings. So it's about the thought and the feeling that you are consistently putting out into the world. It's not about the 10 minutes or 20 minutes of sadness or fear that washes over you when you're going to get another test or when you just got your period or whatever. It's not about those intermittent experiences. It's about what are you cultivating on the whole? Who are you choosing to be every moment of your life in the best way that you possibly can? As you start to retrain your brain to think differently, your body will also respond differently. You will no longer live in that fight or flight frenzy that takes over in even the most mundane situations. Like I know for myself today, I was driving here to do this podcast, and I will tell you what, I hit like every traffic obstacle that I could have possibly hit. I hit a train, I hit traffic, and the old Catherine would have been like, fuck this, and just gotten really upset. And my whole nervous system would have gone into fight or flight, right? And I could see my old habituated ways wanting to come out and wanting to like go in and do that dance. But because I've been practicing this now for years, right? I wasn't perfect. I did get frustrated, but I was able to keep myself in a state of calm where I know I didn't whack out my nervous system. I didn't let myself get so heightened. And the way I did it was by continuing to practice faith that everything was going to be okay. I chose to believe that the traffic wasn't going to matter and that I was going to get here on time and the podcast was going to fucking rock. Right? And it's not easy. And I'm not pretending like I'm some perfect example of it, but I am an example of it because I have used it and practiced it and know it works. And I've taught it to so many women who have found the exact same things work for them too. So how do you know when you're operating from fear rather than faith? If you find yourself getting really pissed off in traffic. No, just kidding. Okay. Agreeing to a doctor's protocol, even though you know it does not feel right? Something in your gut is like, this doesn't feel good, but he or she is the doctor, so I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm too scared to say no, right? I'm lacking faith. taking a supplement because somebody somewhere said it's good for you, even though it makes you kind of nauseous. Really not letting yourself try something new. Like maybe you're drawn to acupuncture and you're curious about it, but something in you kind of always stops and won't take the leap to actually make the appointment and go see the practitioner. Or, and here's a really big one that I think everybody does to a certain extent on this journey, and it is what makes it so painful so much of the time, deciding the timeline you think your baby needs to arrive on. Right? Instead of the one that the universe is going to bring your baby on, you think you know when it needs to arrive and you push your body to meet it, even when your body is giving you tons of signs that it needs a break. So when you focus on fear, you lose connection with your intuition, and begin making decisions and living your life from a place of lack or scarcity. Always thinking there's not enough time, there's not enough money, I don't have enough energy, right? Or whatever it takes to bring your baby home. So in order to get over this, you have to cultivate a stronger sense of connection to yourself and the belief that this journey is unfolding for a good reason and that you will benefit from it in the long run. Now, that is not intended to be like toxic positivity, like, oh, just look on the bright side. I know that you're suffering in grief, but it's happening for a good reason. Okay, that's really hard. But I also want to put out there and really encourage you to consider that the darkest moments of our lives are what often cause us to blossom and grow into a greater version of ourselves. And that very process could in fact be unfolding for you right now, preparing you to become the best version, the best mom that you could ever be and never would have been if it wasn't for this experience. I know in the darkest moments of my journey, it was impossible to feel grateful for it. Right? It was just impossible. Like, no, thank you. But when I began making the changes I needed to make to become a healthier, happier, more balanced version of myself, it was actually a version of myself I always wanted to be anyway. I could see how that darkness was giving way to new light. There's a famous Buddhist quote, no mud, no lotus. No mud, no lotus. We blossom from our struggles. Your journey is an opportunity to become the mom you have always wanted to be, in addition to becoming the mom you are meant to be. So how do we cultivate this faith over fear? All right. When you feel that queasy feeling in your gut or your mind starts racing out of control with the what ifs, what if this never happens? What if or should have, I should have done this, I should have done that. Take the following action steps to redirect your brain from faith to fear. So, and quick caveat, this is exactly what I did today, driving on my way to my podcast recording. So I know it works and I know that's a frivolous example, but it's all of this stuff. It's not just using this when you're going to your appointments. It's using this in every space of your life to cultivate a new experience so that you can become the mom you're meant to be. So you want to just stop. Take a few deep breaths and go inward. Ask for guidance or help knowing what is right. Look for a sign. There will be one. Okay, so that's step one. Step two, get grateful. Remind yourself all the ways the universe has shown up for you in the past and know that it will do so again. It doesn't rain every day. Number three, ask better questions. Instead of asking questions that no one can possibly answer, like, when is my baby going to get here? Or why me? Ask, how is all of this happening for me? Every fiber of your being will want to answer, there's nothing happening for you in this instance. But trust that there is. Be willing to see it. So one example I want to give you of this experience, I have a client who I'm going to call Brianna. And she was in the depth of despair one afternoon. I don't remember what it was, but something had triggered her feeling like it was just never going to happen. She had no direction. She tried everything. Nothing was working, the way that we all feel sometimes. So she'd been working on mindset with me and had developed a willingness to ask questions and see what came up. So she said to the universe, please just give me a sign that I am on the right path, right? I just want to know that I'm moving in the right direction. So that afternoon, her husband came home from work and they decided to take a walk. And this was like a little bit abnormal for them because normally he was home from work early. That's what it was. And they took a walk, which they don't normally do. So they're on this walk and he looks over at her and he tells her that his brother had offered to pay for their IVF. Okay. So this was huge. Like they lived in a state where it's not covered by health insurance. So the treatments were going to run them anywhere from 30 to 50 grand, depending on how many rounds they needed. They were considering doing it and were going to put it up, but it was going to be a huge financial stress for them. So his brother was a confirmed bachelor who did really well for himself, and he wanted them to have kids because he didn't want to have any kids, and he wanted them to carry on the family legacy. So interestingly, I know you might be thinking, well, that's great, but I don't have a brother-in-law who's going to pay for my IVF, and that's fine because you don't need one, because the universe is going to provide you what you need when you start asking the right questions and being open to the signs that show you the answers. They won't always all be as obvious as this story, but I just think this story is so cool because it was like, just give me some direction and then boom, here's your direction, right? But what's interesting about that is this client then did 2 rounds of IVF. Both rounds did not work out, but then she got pregnant naturally. And when I was talking to her about that, she said that if it wasn't for having done the IVF cycles, she would never have experienced the grief that led her to dig even deeper and really align herself in a way that made it possible for her to get pregnant naturally. So I just think that story is so beautiful because sometimes the universe will give us direction, and that direction we might at the time be like, well, this didn't fucking work out, but that doesn't mean it didn't work out. It just means that it pointed you in a direction and there's still more to unfold, right? So it's about that choice, going all the way back to this like initial conversation. It's about that choice. Are you choosing to have faith or are you choosing to have fear? Both of them are a choice, okay? Neither one actually exists in an empirical reality, right? We don't know how things are going to unfold. So you have the opportunity to choose how you want to influence that unfolding. Because if you've been listening to this podcast, you can hear that when we choose to be in fear, we influence the unfolding, right? The mind-body connection is real. And when we choose to be in faith, we influence the unfolding, because when we connect with a larger knowing outside of ourselves, we can get guidance to help us along our path. So you want to choose to have faith in yourself, in Gus, right? Or whatever makes you feel empowered. And I would argue, sometimes people are like, oh my God, this is so woo-woo. I can't do this, right? I would argue this is not so woo-woo. It's actually what makes a woman a badass. It is way easier to live in fear, negativity, and self-doubt. It is way easier to bemoan your misfortune and sit there and constantly ask, why me? Right? It is way easier to live in the negative and to drown in that negativity. But doing that will not get you to your baby. So for some women, this is like a heroine's journey. You go through the travails to get to the promised land, right? When you develop that faith in yourself and the path that you're on, nothing nothing can stop you. So if you want to learn more about how to access your inner badass to become the mom you're meant to be, follow me on Instagram at Badass Fertility for daily tips, insights, and hits of inspiration, or visit my website, badassfertility.com, where you can learn more about my programs and how you can work with me directly. And most importantly, know this: whatever you are feeling, whatever you are going through, if you made it to the end of this podcast, you are meant to be a mom because you care enough to show up and listen. If you like what you heard today, please follow Badass Fertility. You can tune in weekly to the Badass Fertility podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your shows.